A $5,000 credit card balance, paid at the minimum every single month, takes 43 years to clear and costs you more than $20,000 in interest on top. That's not a bug in the system. That's the system working exactly as it was designed to. By the end of this video, you'll understand precisely how the minimum payment trap works, the actual math, month by month, not just the scary headline number. You'll see where the money actually goes, why the balance barely moves, and what the comparison looks like when you map both paths side by side in a table. The minimum payment is not a courtesy. It is a calculation, and the calculation is built to keep your balance alive for as long as mathematically possible. Here is how it actually works. Most credit card issuers set the minimum payment at either 1 to 2% of your outstanding balance or a flat floor, usually $25 to $35, whichever is greater. On a $5,000 balance at a 20% annual interest rate, your minimum payment in month 1 comes out to $100. That sounds manageable. It even feels responsible. But when you break that $100 apart, the picture changes completely. Your monthly interest rate on a 20% APR card is 1.667%. Applied to a $5,000 balance, that is $83 in interest charges in month 1 alone. So of that $100 payment, $83 goes straight to the bank. Only $17 goes toward reducing your actual debt. $17 out of $100. That means 83% of your first payment never touches the principal. It evaporates. And next month, the bank earns interest on a balance of $4,983 instead of $5,000. The progress is so slow it is almost invisible on a graph. What makes this worse is that the formula is intentionally dynamic. The minimum payment isn't fixed, it moves with the balance. As your balance inches down, so does your required payment, which means you never build momentum. The system is calibrated to keep you paying the smallest amount that still technically counts as a payment. I mapped the first payment in a spreadsheet to make this concrete. Month 1, $100 paid. $83 goes to interest. $17 reduces the balance. The split is not close to even, and that asymmetry holds for years. The bank does not need you to default. Defaulters cost them money in collections. What they need is for you to keep paying. Just enough to stay current, never enough to actually get out. When I ran this out month by month in a spreadsheet, the column that stopped me cold was not the interest total. It was the balance column after year 1. After 12 months of making every minimum payment on time, never missing one, your $5,000 balance sits at approximately $4,800. You have paid roughly $1,180 across those 12 months. Your debt has gone down by roughly $200. The bank has collected $980 in interest. In 1 year, on one card. Now here is the mechanism that makes this worse over time. Because the minimum is percentage-based, as the balance slowly falls, the required minimum falls with it. Month 1, $100 required. Month 12, around $96. Month 36, around $89. The payment shrinks faster than the debt does, which means the share of each payment going to interest stays stubbornly high. The balance curve on a graph is nearly flat for the first several years. You would need a magnifying glass to see the decline. This is the compounding trap in reverse. Compound growth works in your favor when you are investing. Your returns generate more returns. The minimum payment structure weaponizes the same mechanic against you. The interest charges on a large balance generate more interest charges, while your contributions to reducing that balance are deliberately kept at the minimum the contract allows. The people designing these products understand amortization better than almost anyone. The minimum payment formula is not approximate. It is precise, and the outcome it produces is not a side effect. It is the central function of how the product was structured. Run the full amortization on a $5,000 balance at 20% APR, minimum payment of 2%, and here is what you get. Total time to pay off, approximately 44 years. Total interest paid, $20,210. Total amount sent to the bank, $25,210 for a $5,000 debt. That number bears repeating. You borrow $5,000, you pay back $25,210. The extra $20,210 is not a penalty for missing payments. It is not a fee. It is the cost of doing exactly what the bank suggests, paying the minimum for 43 years. There is another number buried in that timeline worth pulling out. By the 10-year mark, a borrower who has faithfully paid every minimum payment has sent the bank approximately $9,900, more than the original balance, and they still owe around $3,350. They are a decade in, they have paid back nearly twice the original balance, and they are barely a quarter through the loan. The balance is not halved because the interest charges have been steadily rebuilding what the payments chip away. Compare this to what $25,210 does anywhere else. Invested at a conservative historical average of 8% annual return, $25,210 over 43 years compounds to approximately $690,000. That is not a projection built on optimism. It is the long-run average return of broad index funds over multi-decade periods. The cost of the minimum payment is not just the interest number. It is everything that money could have become, and it never had the chance. The statement balance tells you what you owe. It does not tell you what that number is worth over time if it stays in your hands instead of the bank's. Before the 1970s, credit cards in the United States largely required full payment at the end of each billing cycle. The model was straightforward. You spent, you paid it back. The account reset. Banks made money on merchant fees and annual charges. There was no mechanism for interest to accumulate on a revolving balance, because there was no revolving balance. What changed was the introduction of what the industry began calling revolving credit. Banks lobbied for and received the regulatory framework that allowed balances to carry over month to month, with interest applied to whatever remained. The minimum payment concept was central to this design, because without a minimum, borrowers might pay nothing and default immediately. With a minimum set low enough, they would pay just enough to stay current, and the balance would persist almost indefinitely. Within a decade, revolving credit card balances became one of the most profitable products in consumer banking. Data from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau shows that U.S. credit card issuers collected over $130 billion in interest and fees in a single recent year. The majority of that revenue comes specifically from accounts that carry a balance month to month, called revolvers in the industry. Accounts paid in full every month, called transactors, generate almost no interest income for the bank whatsoever. This is the incentive structure. A customer who pays in full every month is, from a revenue standpoint, nearly worthless to the interest income side of the business. A customer who pays the minimum, faithfully and on time, for 43 years, that is the customer the product was built to create. Put a number on it. A transactor generates essentially zero interest revenue for the issuer. Their value comes from interchange fees, typically 1.5 to 2.5% of each transaction, which the merchant pays, not the cardholder. A revolver carrying an average balance of $5,000 at 20% APR generates approximately $1,000 in interest income per year. Carry that same balance for 5 years, and the issuer has collected roughly $5,000 in interest on a $5,000 loan, while the borrower still owes close to the original amount. The balance has barely moved. The bank has been paid back twice. The same $5,000 balance, the same 20% APR, the same card, the same bank. One change. Instead of paying the minimum, you lock in a fixed monthly payment of $150. Here is what the timeline looks like. Fixed at $150 per month, the balance clears in approximately just over 4 years. Total interest paid, $2,359. Total paid back to the bank, $7,359. Now put those two outcomes side by side. Minimum payment path, over 43 years, $25,210 total paid. Fixed $150 path, just over 4 years, $7,359 total paid. The difference is $17,851 and nearly 40 years of your financial life. The fixed payment works because it breaks the dynamic the minimum is built around. When the payment stays constant but the balance slowly falls, an increasing share of each payment goes toward principal, not interest. In month 1, $83 of your $150 goes to interest and $67 goes to the balance. By month 20, the interest charge has dropped to around $59, meaning $91 of your $150 now goes to principal. The curve accelerates. The minimum payment does the opposite. It keeps the curve flat. What is worth noting is that $150 on a $5,000 balance is not aggressive. It is only 3% of the original balance. The standard guidance in consumer finance research suggests targeting 3 to 5% of the original balance as a fixed monthly payment, enough to apply real pressure to the principal without requiring a dramatic change to monthly cash flow. Here is what this actually comes down to. The minimum payment is not a payment strategy. It is a revenue mechanism dressed up as a payment option. The formula is set so that the first months of any balance are almost entirely interest. And because the minimum shrinks as the balance shrinks, the window never really closes on its own. 3 things to take from this. First, the minimum payment tells you the floor the bank requires, not the floor you should accept. Second, the payoff math changes dramatically at fixed payments of 3% or more of the original balance, not the current balance, the original one. Third, the number that breaks the mechanic is not aggressive. On a $5,000 balance, 3% is $150 a month. That single change cuts nearly 40 years and over $17,000 from the outcome. The minimum is a default setting. It does not have to be yours. The numbers on your statement tell you what you owe. They do not tell you what you're actually paying for.